Good evening, everyone. We want to call to order the September 3rd, 2019 meeting of the Grafton Board of Selectmen. One of the new features that came out of last week's retreat that we had is we decided that we're going to begin these meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. So with that, you could all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. The first item on the agenda for this evening is reorganization. We have 4 members here. There could very well be a lot of 2-2 votes, and I don't know how this is going to go, but I will entertain a motion to reorganize.
Mr. Chairman, I want to maybe make a motion, suggest that maybe we move ahead on the schedule and do the Tufts University since they're here.
Sure.
If I have a second to that, and then we can have maybe a little bit longer of a discussion to go ahead with the reorg. If the
fine with
board is okay with that.
You
Yeah,
guys?
that's fine.
It's fine with me. Okay. Do you want to have Tufts come on up? Meet Alastair Cribb, Dean at Tufts University.
Thank you very much for allowing me a few minutes tonight. I won't be long, but I just wanted to come by and introduce myself as the 5th Dean of the Cummings School of Veterinary Medicine at Tufts University. I was most recently at the Veterinary College at Calgary as the Dean there for 10 years, a little gap, and then I joined the school here. And I must say that I'm very impressed with what I found there. Fantastic area around here. I know that Cummings and the town of Grafton has a good relationship, and I'm really committed to making sure that continues and that we're seen as an integral part of the community. Just on a personal note, I'm currently renting elsewhere, but I am building a house over here in Grafton on the Clearview subdivision that's just going in over there. So I will soon be a member of Grafton.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Any questions or anything I can answer? No? Okay, great. And I said look forward to working with you all in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Do
you. Thank you.
you want to keep going through this and then do the reorg after new business? How do you guys want to handle it?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
That's fine. All right, any resignations tonight? I don't see any on the agenda.
Nope.
All right. Appointments, town administrator?
Well, we have one for the appointment of Joanne Duncan for the Select Board admin. It's been vacated for some time. We had a budget reduction, went from 35 hours to 19 hours. We had 4 candidates. We interviewed 2, and Joanne, certainly with her background, experience, and commitment to the town, we thought was the best fit, and the detail-orientedness of her demeanor and work product, we think will be beneficial to the town. So I really hope the board will support the recommendation.
This is a 19-hour position.
Yes.
Okay.
Was it 19, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Carlson?
I vote that we affirm the appointment administrative assistant to the Select Board, Joanne Duncan.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Joanne.
All right, moving on to new business. We have a vote to sign contract VHB for Adams Road Engineering.
So there's 2 pieces here. Adams Road, we've been going back and forth with the owners on Adams, and we want to engage. There's a bigger decision point to be made here, but this is the first step. And I really wish I had, do you have at least the slides of the land for that piece? While she looks for that, can you just go through the fact that you got VHB on board relative to the design?
So obviously, if we're gonna move forward with getting the
the drainage issue on that road resolved. We need, you know, the best case scenario for us is to do it once, do it right, and be done with it, and running out that 850 feet, just at the edge of the property line for lot 38.
Matt chased it.
Is what we feel to be the best case scenario. So we had VHB give us a proposal to do the design engineering, to get the easements and get all that work done, survey. And then we, as the DPW, will self-perform the work, assuming it's authorized by town meeting. To do so, we'll, you know, move forward, you know, get our structures ordered the day after and get stuff in the ground.
So I sent the board a confidential memo 3 weeks ago because there's a threat of litigation. I kept that in confidence. This is the solution we came up with to ask the developer who developed all those frontage parcels to give us an easement on the last parcel to run this pipe. So far, he's been non-responsive. So we think the next logical step is to, A, get it engineered, which we won't do until we have approval from town meeting. If he won't give us that easement willingly, we would have to do a taking article for town meeting. We think that the cost is de minimis. We don't think there's a lot of value to it. We actually think we improve his land because he doesn't have to do any detention on the property. He could tie into this particular pipe, which would make his property more valuable. But we've used that argument to him, and so far still non-responsive. So what we would propose is to take it, get an appropriation to do the work, get an appropriation for the engineering, all in about $130,000.
Okay.
If we don't, you probably say, what's the alternative? We could put the road back to existing condition, all the water would shed, we would just pitch it on both sides. The two neighbors mostly affected by the rainwater off of Knowlton Farm would still have that particular problem.
Right.
So there's exposure, but I don't think there's any liability, but that's as much as I'll say about that for now.
Sure.
But we think this is a reasonable approach, but if we're gonna do this, we certainly have to entertain those two other subsequent articles next week relative to the taking article and the appropriation to do the work.
Okay.
And I can print out a picture of where the pipe would be. It's not
I
exact,
have
it's
a
pretty
black,
close.
I have a black.
Do you have a black and white one?
Yeah, it's not, at least you can see.
I'm gonna try this one more time. I have a lot of faith. Yeah, put that back in. Orientation. This is Adams up here. This is the proposed pipe.
Okay.
It would extend, so this is the inlet where they're having all the problems with the water.
Yep,
So it would run the pipe
so this
To
is
this point.
Estabrook.
and come down. Yep, that's the
Okay.
bricks on the other side. Here's a not black and white copy.
Oh, that's
Okay,
fine. Thank you.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
A little bit easier to do.
So how long is the pipe run? 800 feet?
It's about almost 1,000, because you got 150 feet down the road and they 800 feet
That's the
down
next question.
through the properties.
And the taking piece, people might ask, why that? We know that we would have to go too deep to get it to the town-owned land where the barn is. And feasibly, as deep as you go, you have to go as wide, so there just isn't enough room. So you just can't even engineer it.
Well,
or
then
build
it puts us in the same situation. The water ends up on somebody else's property event, because the elevations just don't work going that way. Tim said it's deep in the road, and then it gets even deeper where the barn is. It's just not,
Okay.
it's not, because it's a dip behind it, so it doesn't work.
Question?
I do have a question. Well, does the pipe have to go like in the middle of the road? Is that where you're proposing it?
We'd kind of hug the curb line on the north side of Adams, so on the east side of Adams, heading north, back towards Estabrook, up for 100 so feet, then make a 90, and then go 850 feet to the rear of the property, following the property lines between 36 and 38, and discharging it right at the rear property line of 38, which is on town, which would be discharging to town land.
Okay.
Okay.
But the pipe goes through, the contractor's property.
Correct, yes, that's where the easement would need to be. That's the only easement we would need to take,
Okay,
by
it's
that
just that
design.
easement.
Yeah, just a straight line right along the edge.
Anything else?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Carlson?
I move the board vote to authorize the chairman to sign contract with Vanessa Hangan and Brustelin Incorporated, also known as VHB, to provide engineering services in the amount of $30,900 to the town of Grafton.
Motion made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, vote to sign contract Weston and Sampson prepare emergency action plans for Silver Lake Dam and Lake Ripple Dam as required by the State Department of Conservation and Recreation.
Second reason why Paul's here is to talk about this.
So we have to do it. We own those two dams. It's mandated that it's be done before the end of the year. Just, we reached out to Weston and Sampson because they did the design on the Lake Ripple improvements years ago, so we just knock this out and hopefully that's the end.
Okay.
But it's just a plan. There's no, when you read the first word, they're hazards. They're not, they
They're-
could be if they
They
fail, but
consider
they're
high
not
hazard
failing.
dams just because of the potential of
Right.
catastrophic failure.
Sure.
Just remind me, and this is a result of the 2005 flooding that we received.
No, oh no, it's just a state mandated.
This wasn't something that was okay.
It's not just our town, they're all, what they consider to be municipally owned, well, all high hazard dams. It's, you know, Lake Ripple's dam is fairly new, so that, you know, in our lifetimes, that should never be an issue. It's just an unfunded mandate.
I know what those are.
Yeah, right. Yes. Okay, any further discussion? Mr. Entertain a
I
motion?
move the board vote to authorize the chairman to sign contract with Weston and Sampson to prepare an emergency action plan for Lake Ripple Dam and Silver Lake Dam in the amount of $15,820.
Motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thanks.
I'll sit here through the next one
Yeah.
and wait.
Okay.
Oh, there's Andy. Oh, when he gets to it, you can hand him on a thing.
So let's see. This is C, DPW building project review funding options to meet anticipated project cost deficit for consideration at October town meeting. That is a well-written agenda item.
Okay, so you had a meeting with Becca 2 weeks ago. She laid out some options. And we're trying to do two projects, obviously the library and DPW. DPW, a $13 million project. Library was originally 16.5. Those estimates for what the average taxpayer would cost for the DPW was $156, and the library was 85. This is an average single-family tax bill. So we start from the premise of, hey, what's it cost to do these projects? Those projects, if there was no wrinkles, that's what it would cost people. The library had a 10% contingency of about $1.3 million. The DPW only had a 3% contingency. We blew through that as a result of the ledge that you all remember signing change orders for, at least previous board members anyways. So the total impact of the borrowing over the 20 years on average is about $241 on average for every taxpayer. So we have that in mind. Those are the selling points that we said, hey, how much will this cost? So as we go through and we try to go out to bid and we learn more and we value engineer, we try to get under that number. That's always the goal of every project, is try to get under what the impact of the taxpayer would be. So we need an additional $1 million for DPW. That new figure's, did I do that backwards? No, this is right. It's 14 million, went from 13 to 14. So again, looking at the estimated cost, that added 14, or the added $1 million will go from 156 for the average single-family tax bill to 164. So if I had this on a slide, it would go so much better, I assure you. The library building project came in, for the bids for construction only, came in $1.8 million less than the estimate. So two pieces to remember here. When we constructed the high school, we borrowed all the money because we thought we'd need it all. We ended up turning back $1 million. We used that $1 million on like projects that can be borrowed for that term or a longer term. Those are the DOR regulations. The unfortunate thing is when you do that, by example, we took the money that was left over from the high school, we put it to One Grafton Common to finish that ADA compliant project. That $1 million is no longer tax exempt or exempt from Proposition 2.5. So right now, to pay that debt service, we're using general fund dollars to pay that $1 million debt. So $23,000 a year is the debt service, give or take. So we gotta pay that off with general fund money. So we've already borrowed money for the library under what we thought we would need, so we already did a short-term borrowing for about $8.3 million. So we had a conference call today with DOR, the bond counsel, and our financial advisor. The long and short of it is keeping in mind there's a reduction, but an increase of $1 million for the school, for the DPW. So you have the library coming in under, DPW needs more money. They recommended to keep it exempt from Prop 2.5 is to put a warrant article before town meeting to allow money from the library project to be spent on DPW. The net effect is still a $5 annual reduction to the tax bill. So if we stayed status quo and just borrowed and had no wrinkles, people would pay more for the two projects. Because one project is significantly lower, we will pay less by using and town meeting has to vote it, by putting that million towards the DPW. So we can keep all other projects intact and not have to turn over every stone and still not impact the taxpayer. It's still not a good or best case scenario. Best case is for not to have a ledge problem. The second piece of this is we have to make application to the Department of Revenue, which is a document that's signed by the Select Board, to ask for a request of what they call a DE2, Debt Exclusion 2. It's when overruns occur inside of a project that they will allow you generally to go about 10% above the estimated amount. And of course, this is under that 10%. So I gave you a lot of info. You guys are here basically for a detail and questions for the board. My goal was just to show that we are going to spend less by taking this action and we keep it exempt, not impacting our operational funding, because we will not have to pay for that debt service out of operations.
Thanks. So in essence, what you're doing is you're taking the surplus savings due to the bids that have come in for one project, and you're applying them to this one, which has some overages that we were talking about the other week.
That's correct.
And that this process, what you're asking the town to do is basically saying, hey, I want to allocate money from this project to the library over to the DPW, just so the public is aware of that. It's not going to impact their tax bill.
Yeah, it'll still be lower. It'll be the $5 on average lower.
Should negatively impact.
But
their
yes,
tax
it will not, they will not pay any more taxes as a result of it. Now, people have asked, well, what if the library's short? Well, they have a 10% contingency, which is $1.3 million.
Yep.
So if it's $1.8 million under the estimate, you have almost 2.1 million in which to work for that project. And we've been on that site when we bought it for Peralt. There's been tons of analysis about the ash and no ledge.
Right.
We always knew it was wet, but not to the point where you can't work on
I
it.
think it's been the most studied piece of land in Grafton history.
It may be. And we'll do a little bit more. So the two things just financially for the library that are good is we've got 10% contingency, which is better than what we had for DPW. And secondly, that 1.8 million, if we move $1 million of that to the DPW, that's that 0.8. That other $800,000 is still sitting there. To be borrowed, but still, it's still there. So I don't feel like we'd be cutting the library off short. Right now, those bids came in a very positive manner. We're going to get 100% of the building we were looking for. The library committee did have some discussion last Thursday night at the building committee meeting about potentially, adding a little bit more insulation to the building, and looking at the cost of putting solar panels on the building. But I told them right off the bat, let's not go on a shopping spree because this just came in under budget. Let's take a lesson from the DPW project and make sure that we're well out of the ground and under control before we start looking at anything else. So I think we're in much better shape with the library project because of that, the low bids, then and because of the contingency, the budget that we built for that puts us in better shape to begin with.
In the event that something happened at the library that would cause us to incur cost overruns at that point, then we would end up having to go back to that. We'd essentially be where we were last week, trying to figure out.
Yeah, we'd either be unturning all those warrant articles or going back for a DE2 for that project. But, we're out of the ground now in DPW, and we don't foresee any problems other than having to fund the shortfall for the tanks and for the ledge now.
Correct.
So, yeah, we could be, but we don't anticipate it of our best guess right now. Andy's fears, you'd start to work on an old building and the wall falls down, which is true, and we talked about that today. We insured this project from a builder's risk standpoint.
Right.
Outside of our own policy, so we don't have that liability if we were to have a loss. So it won't be with us for the rest of our lives. It'll just be with this one policy now. So we're hedging against that unlikely event as well.
It just makes me a little nervous because it is an older building and, partial renovation, partial new construction.
Yep, I agree. I mean, we've got historic masonry on that building. Some of that brick is not in great shape, and so we're concerned about some of that. But again, that's why we have a better contingency, and then on top of that, the ability to have that other $800,000, I think puts us in really good shape. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Any questions?
So what action do you need from us today?
We just need to know that we're gonna bring back a warrant article that's gonna deal with that issue, to vote on, increasing the flexibility, if you will, to the library article that was voted on 3 years ago now. Just knowing we're gonna write it as such, and that's all we really need, just to know that that's the direction we're going to take. And your next board meeting, you'll vote to sign the DE2, which is yeah, it's 2 pages. We have to tell the Department of Revenue what the problems were with the project. So we filled it out mostly. Andy did some detail work on it, but then the board has to sign here before we submit it for their approval. And we do have, at least on a phone conference call conversation today, we do have tentative approval that, based on the criteria we've laid out, they would approve the DE2.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thanks, Andy.
Sure.
Thanks, Andy.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
All right. Moving on to item number D, vote to sign memorandum of understanding Metropolitan Area Planning Council for LED streetlight conversion.
So another reason why Paul is here, we did a couple things relative to LED streetlights. We applied for a grant from Green Communities. We also found the Metropolitan Area Planning Council to be helpful in reducing our costs, because they went out to bid for LED conversions in multiple communities in the Boston Metro West area. And Tanco is the company that internally we've chosen to work with to do this change out. That selection process yields a 30% reduction from the estimate that we got when we originally did the assessment of what those LED lights were going to cost. Because we have to do 2 steps. We have to buy from National Grid those lights, and then we can change them, and then the tariff changes and we pay a lower rate for the electricity, for unmetered electricity. So the memorandum of understanding is between us, the town of Grafton, and the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and we will jump on their bid bandwagon, if you will, relative to, I should have practiced that one first, to get that 30% reduction off of our estimate. So between that warrant article, Green Communities money, and the MAPC savings, we can do all conversions of all streetlights in Grafton before October of next year.
Great.
So it requires 2 things. One is we made the selection with Tanco to do it. There's a lot of nuance relative to the controls and the apparatus, but they can fulfill the requirement. They've been fully vetted by MAPC. Staff has talked to other communities who've used Tanco, and we've had lengthy discussions with MAPC relative to what they're providing the town of Grafton.
Okay. Questions?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Cross.
I move the board vote to authorize the chairman to sign the memorandum of agreement with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council for the administration of the LED Streetlight Rapid Retrofit Grant Program.
Motion made. Do I hear a second?
I actually, excuse me, I had a couple of questions.
Oh, go ahead.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Before we, yeah, thank you. My first question is, so MAPC did the procurement for
Yes.
this? Okay. Did the town have any involvement, or?
Not in the selection.
Okay,
of that,
okay.
no.
I just bring it up because when National Grid changes to a tariff 5, I think one of the requirements is for us to have a maintenance contract in place, and it'll be with Tanco, right?
That's what our hope is. But
It's-
if they're not local though,
They're not, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
when we call some of their references.
You did, okay,
Yeah, I know the director in Manchester by the Sea, so I called him.
good.
And Doug Webster used them, so we were, had got Doug's input as well.
Good.
And that was one of the things, one of the concerns is the maintenance contract and how we, at the end of it, then either we sign on with them for maintenance or we try and find another avenue for maintenance.
Okay. I would just, because this isn't my wheelhouse, I work in Sutton, and we did lights about 2 years ago, and going into it, there's this assumption that you put in LED lights are gonna work for 20 years, you don't need a lot of maintenance, and we found out that that's not actually the case. Storms happen, there's broken lights, there's new developments, and you need, a company that's gonna be not only proactive, but available. And so I'm not saying Tanco is not a responsible company, they could be, but I would like to see the town have a say in the procurement of the maintenance contract long-term. I think the installation of the lights is one thing, but just making sure that, we have someone who's responsive long-term.
Yeah, that was one of the concerns that Manchester by the Sea had.
Yeah, okay,
And just their upfront vetting of all our existing lights and just stay on them. They were very responsive to their requests, but they had to ask them. So, and Doug kind of alluded to the same things.
okay, all right,
And the backup for that, not to get too far, the vendor who does the install might be different than the vendor who does the maintenance, but if we were ever to run into a pole problem, just like with the fiber now, we have Comtrack, they could provide that service too.
Yep.
In a pinch, or maybe even they could bid it out
Well,
themselves, 'cause they have all the equipment.
Right, once you
necessary
start,
to-
we haven't really looked at maintenance other than that they provided. All three, the people that we interviewed, they all provide maintenance. Is there, just use Shrewsbury for example, they run their own light company.
right.
Do they provide maintenance for other towns, West Boylston? Could we jump on with them? Holden
Right.
has their own light department.
Yep,
Do those-
Paxton,
Would they
yep,
respond here for X fee
yep,
instead of using?
And we partner with Shrewsbury on water and sewer, so there's partnerships to be had with
Right,
them.
so and that's an avenue we had, that Leah did most of the legwork on this, that Leah and I
Sure.
discussed, is, reaching out to those other communities to see if they would perform some sort of work for us.
good. Yeah, I would just make sure, we do diligence on the long-term contract
yeah,
and that we're heavily involved in the procurement on that.
For that, yes.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah, oh,
a
yeah,
PC at all.
yeah.
Good, okay, that's what I wanted to make sure of. And then, I'm assuming that the 3 months, cause there's a schedule here, there's like 3 months where we pay National Grid for the lights, and then they have like a 3-month, period where they can change us to the T5 tariff. Is that correct? Do we know?
We have to prove to them insurance, maintenance contract, there's,
Yeah,
List,
I-
yeah,
I can't understand any of their, I really can't,
Yeah.
it's horrible, and Leah's been dealing with it constantly, I still don't understand.
yeah,
And so, I don't know the nuances of the National Grid, their tariff system, and what's an S1, an S2, and S4,
so they have 90 days
Yeah.
to come back and say, you're not qualified to
You
be
certainly
a
don't know
T5.
that. I mean,
And so I bring it up because, if we want to have the light conversion done by next October and not get into winter season and have it, delayed another year, which costs money because the LED lights will save us money, I'd make sure we hold National Grid to that 90 days.
we have constant meetings with Kevin.
Oh, yeah,
Schwartz.
I mean, our rep from National Grid is great, I mean, he's tried to explain it, 1,000 different ways for us, and it's just.
Yeah, it's
But in
great.
terms of them accepting and giving us the rate, all their criteria, he's told me what the hangups were in Millbury, so that was mostly an insurance piece, we dealt with that ahead of time, the maintenance contract. So he's kind of given us the pitfalls so we know not to fall into those. So we think even the selection and the spec of the light is consistent with what
Yeah, but
they want to see.
Okay. And then my last question is, what's the cost? Do we know the cost yet to buy the lights from National Grid?
Is that on the second page of the contract?
The big one is the
There's a schedule of costs and milestones.
the S1 lights that we don't yet own.
Yep.
And there's 55 of those, and that total cost is right around 50 grand.
Okay.
The rest of the lights, we already own, whether they're
Oh, that's good.
the regular Cobra lights or the
Okay.
fancy other lights.
And is that part of the $160,000 grant we received from
No.
communities?
So
That's
that would-
separate.
To pay for those, the remaining 55 lights, we would have to use the warrant article funding.
Got it.
Unless we got some different incentives from National Grid along the way.
Okay.
And we verified the incentives on, the We should back up, right? We had to go through this process to figure out all of the energy conservation measures. And the company Northern Energy did the audit on the lights. They gave us the estimates. So their estimates for the cost are what's in the grant and what the application to Green Communities was for.
Okay.
So having the 30% savings from MAPC allows us to do that. We will have to dip into that warrant article. I think it has 125,000 in it.
Yeah, it was same as the Green Communities grant. I think it was the 165, I think, wasn't
Yeah.
it? But yeah, we're gonna, we need that, even just as, we would then, make sure we're out there with them. Somebody, like we said, the lead, she's gonna be following these people around. There's a pole on Magnolia Lane, for example, that, needs to be changed. I don't wanna change it now, cause the light, and put a mercury vapor light on there and just to change it next year. It can stay the way it is for a year. But, we're gonna have to change that pole, and that's the time to do it. So we're gonna need some of that money to fix those things that are already broken. If there's a masthead that's too long or too short, we're gonna wanna change that
Yeah.
at the same time, so.
But it'll also be the same spec for planning board, for light
Lights going
heights,
forward,
neighborhoods,
every time.
they'll all be the same. Right now, it's kind of a hodgepodge. It actually comes to the board to approve lighting plans for a subdivision, to the select board. But you don't have a standard. You will now, but you don't right now.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In light of
Yeah.
Ms. DeFazio's commentary and questions, does anything need to change in the memorandum of agreement that's in front of us tonight?
No, based on the questions, no.
Okay.
Because there's no maintenance contract involved. It's just the installation.
I got you, okay.
Any other questions? All right, so we got a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I will second the motion.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul, for all the work with this. I know
It
it's,
was Leah that
yeah, and Leah too. Thank you to Leah.
She stuck it to the end of the company.
Good.
So we have 4E, vote to sign contract LED streetlight replacement project. Tanko, is that?
Same
Same
thing,
thing.
part of MAP's procurement,
Okay.
and that's the company that Paul alluded to and vetted with staff relative to do that replacement with those grant funds.
So MAPC did all the legwork behind, and they categorized people, so we interviewed the 3 highly advantageous contractors they chose. And then we did our call arounds, we had Tim call a couple of towns, because one contract didn't provide us with references, so we had to kind of dig around to find out. So we called their references, and then, so they were the cheapest, and they ended up, the references were fine. Nobody said don't hire them, so.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Carlson?
I move the board vote to authorize the chairman to sign contract with Tanko Lighting to provide LED street lighting consulting services to the town.
Motion made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Now, I'm not sitting,
Yeah, you don't have to sit around.
sitting here with you.
Spend enough time together.
That's it, Paul?
See you
You
tomorrow.
don't want to stay?
Well, I'm gonna stay with this.
All right, item number F, vote to award library reconstruction project contract.
Andy, take it away.
So the Library Planning and Building Commission recommended moving forward with negotiation for a contract with CTA Construction Managers out of Waltham. They were the low bidder on the project. They were highly qualified. We have already done reference checks and all that stuff. So that was their recommendation to the select board.
Had they done library construction projects in the past?
They're working on 2 libraries right now. And they've done projects that are much larger than this, which is also of schools and the like. So similar complexity, but much larger, which is usually a good sign.
Do you happen to know offhand which library projects they're working on?
No.
In case people were curious about their work product,
Yeah.
that's the only reason I asked.
Yep. Sorry.
Andy,
Yes.
what are the 3 alternates that were also were able to be included?
So one was the skylight. There's a long skylight overhead.
A retractable shade, was that part of that?
Oh, it was the sunshades. They're not retractable. They're actually sunscreens that sit on the above the windows on the outside, so just on the south side of the building. So that's just an energy
Favor.
savings device.
Okay.
And the third one is escaping me right now.
That's okay. Sorry. But that's good that we were able to.
Yeah, none of those are sort of nice to haves. They're all, I think, significant. They're all significant pieces for either the architecture, the feel of the building, or the energy use. So,
Nice.
yeah, they're all good.
Is it Somerville or Weymouth? Those are two libraries they're working on? Does that ring a bell?
No. It was in their latest, it was actually in their latest, in their bid, not in the earlier qualifications package. They didn't have any libraries in there, but they do have two that they're working on right now.
Okay.
Can you, I know we covered this, but can you just cover the estimate that we had from the architect in terms of construction costs versus what actually got bid?
Sure. So our straight up construction budget, not soft costs like engineering fees and things like that, was 12.8 million. The total here, just the base bid alone was 10.6, and then we had the three alternates that brought it up to 10.9. So we're again 1.8 million under, which
Okay,
is
that's excellent.
great stuff. Yeah.
Mr. Carlson.
Move the board vote to award CTA Construction Management LLC with the contract for the library renovation project in the amount of $10,926,000.
Motion made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. That's excellent. Thank
Thanks
you.
very much.
Thanks. Have a good night.
All right. Item number G. Vote to exercise right of first refusal, 155 George Hill Road.
So this is going to be a solar project that's 24.2 acres being removed from chapter 61B as a result of a solar field lease agreement. Conservation Commission, Board of Assessors have voted not to exercise the town's right. Planning Board voted similarly. However, their decision that they're going through now for an approval process is contingent upon trails being maintained through the facility, which the developer has agreed to do. So short story is it's approved by planning with that condition, and they vote not to recommend the purchase either. Now it's up to the board to decide if it wanted to purchase it or not. So from staff and all these other agencies' perspective, they're voting not to recommend purchase.
And what is the cost?
Becca thinks she knew you were gonna ask that, but it's a
know.
lease, so I don't know if we can give you a definitive
Yeah.
value.
No, of the property?
But we know the property, the field card, we can tell you what the assessed value is. It's not in that Pablo? No, you got it right there.
Assessed value is 101,000.
101.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Carlson.
I move the board vote not to exercise the town's right under section 14 of chapter 61A, section 9 of chapter 61B to purchase the 24.2 acre portion of land at 155 George Hill Road, 23 and 29 Rear Leland Street.
Motion made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Oh, Jen, go ahead.
Is this land abut any other public land, or what are the abutters to this property?
Now, Land Trust is out back, it goes to the forest in Upton. I think that was part of the concern. And the Land Trust was part of the discussions in-house with staff and with planning board. So as long as they could maintain that trail base, they were in favor of the
Okay,
solar field being developed.
okay.
Because there is access to the back through there, and that they'll maintain that based on the planning board's decision.
Okay.
Do you have that big parcel right there? Can you tell me who that is?
That's Upton,
Oh, that's Upton. No,
right?
we can't see who owns. It's Upton State Forest is right behind there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes 3-1. Okay. Next on the agenda, vote to waive permit fees, Grafton Water District projects.
So Matt Pearson and the town of Grafton and the Water District have had a great relationship in terms of things that we need, connection fees to buildings. They waive their fees constantly, and I think Matt has some small projects going on, building wellheads and so forth. And, you know, there's always a permit fee associated with it. We just can't waive the fee willy-nilly. It has to be a board approval. So, you know, Matt ran a list for me since he's been here, and then, you know, Bob Berger and I ran an anecdotal list for the, you know, even though our bathrooms are horrible, they're all water efficient because all of those apparatus in all the bathrooms are water efficient because the water district paid for them and paid to have them installed. The water coolers in this building, so it's probably long overdue to just waive building permit fees for the water district, but only the Board of Selectmen can do that.
I have a question. Can we unilaterally just waive fees for a specific organization, its own municipality that works within our town to say in perpetuity waive all building permit fees?
You could. You have a lot of latitude with it. There are people that make specific requests. So from the community barn, the South Grafton Water District, there's been different organizations that have come before you project specific. But since Matt has so much going on, he's just looking to have it waived.
I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah.
I think, you know, the relationship in which you described, I would really love to see, you know, a comparison graph so the community knows, hey, we're waiving some permit fees, but here, like you were saying,
Here are the benefits.
here are all the other benefits
Yeah.
that we have and how that working relationship has been going on over the years. Because, you know, all people see is we waive permit fees. I think people are like, oh, you're just kind of leaving money on the table. But to your point, you know, no, there's a good working relationship where we kind of give and take back and forth between the two groups.
Yeah, I did not take the time to quantify all of those benefits, and I could do that. Obviously, with his help, he has the estimates for what he's just come in and done. But I did not do that for this, because I figured it was, I don't know, how did he put it to me today? Long overdue, I think was his words.
They've done other things, like they've frozen the maintenance costs for hydrants in town, so we pay money to them every year to maintain those hydrants, and he froze that cost, so no matter how many new hydrants are added, we're always gonna pay a flat fee to the water district moving forward.
It might be good to be able to quantify that, so, you know, even at May town meeting, we can go forward and say this is something we did this year. We established, I don't know what you would call this, I suppose a policy. How do we codify this? Such that future boards, when we're all gone,
Well, we would have to memorialize it between the water district and us, and it would just be a written document.
okay.
And I don't know, I don't mean, every correspondence we do, we have a correspondence book in the office, so everything we do is, even though it shouldn't be hard paper, I keep it just to make it a quick reference. So all those things are cataloged.
Okay.
All right.
Ms. Carlson?
I move the board vote to waive all Grafton Water District permit fees for water projects performed throughout the town.
Motion made, second. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion
And
passes.
can you just tell me what you wanted to see from May, like, you want me to put together a list of the value?
Yeah, could you just, doesn't have to be anything too in-depth, but a quantifiable analysis of the pros and cons here that, you know, showing that this is a net positive for the town.
I can do that.
All right. Moving on to agenda item I, vote to close road between Congregational Church and Common on September 29th, 2019 from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. for church's annual apple pie social. I expect no dissent from the apple pie social. Yes.
I move the board vote to close the roads between the Congregational Church and the Grafton Common on September 29, 2019, from the hours of 11 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Motion made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? I just want to say that's an awesome idea. All right.
time,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No one. Okay, motion passes. That's just exciting. All right. Next on the agenda is Select Board reports / chair reports, but I skipped straight over public comments. I'm sorry. Are there any public comments? Going once, going twice. Okay, no public comments. Select board TA reports. Tim, you want to go?
I'll go, sure. Relative to Triple E, the spraying has been completed. They are contemplating a second spray, but there's been nothing from the state confirming when that could take place. But the Board of Health has ordered from dusk till dawn, outdoor activities should be rescheduled until the first hard frost, which we expect in late October. And everyone should still use personal protection, and that info is on our website and on Facebook. So everything from using bug spray with DEET and long pants, long sleeve shirts and so forth. So all that stuff is on there. We are looking for the Board of Health to make a recommendation to join the Worcester County Mosquito Control Program. I think you guys talked about that 3 weeks ago now. So I think they're meeting next Monday and may have that recommendation in that. We'll have to go to town meeting. Town meeting has voted on that twice. I brought that to town meeting twice. It failed twice. But given the latest round of issues with mosquitoes and Triple E, it may be an easier sell this time around. The methodology that they use is a lot different than what it was back in the 80s relative to trucks driving down the street and just doing aerial spray on every street. It's localized in areas that are known to breed mosquitoes. So it's a lot different, and we can have Tim DeChamps, he was already here with you 2 weeks ago. He can come to town meeting as well. But that does get an assessment off of our cherry sheet, so it's a direct, and it used to be, it was 45,000 when I first proposed it in 2009. I think it's 75,000 now. So we'll have to make adjustments to the budget anyways in October. We'll have to adjust it because of this as well. The biggest news I don't have you can show it to the audience and the people at home, but 8 Pine Street, we've been talking about this forever. We finally closed on that this week. And I'll just pass this around, but this is the flyer sheet we have for the redevelopment. And the highlights are there, but basically it's a mixed use. Mixed use, we are looking on this 8.8 acres to provide at least 177 units of housing with a 25% affordable component. So obviously that will increase our HRI. If they're all rental, as you know, they'll all be counted.
That'd be great.
So we have a huge opportunity. We have a few interested developers. If you've been to the old Spag site behind Whole Foods, that company's out of Texas. The CEO came and met with us in development team, and they are interested in that site for something that would look much like that.
Great.
So I think that's a huge opportunity. So mid-October, I'm pressing Joe to put together an RFP to put that land out to bid. Obviously, we just got to transfer it to us. We couldn't try to sell it if we didn't own it. So we're going to try and get that out on the street for October. Again, that whole area of Route 30 and Pine Street, there's not one solution that's going to diversify and redevelop that area. It's going to be that, it's going to be UPS, it's Alfonso's property, and they are on Route 30 now, putting in their sewer line. We're doing our sewer project. In October, you'll have that project beginning. And then when that sewer line's in, that area can get off a septic and there'll be more usable land for redevelopment purposes. So it's not one and done, it's many pieces that have to go into redevelopment and diversifying that area from an economic standpoint. But this is one step, a long step along the road to get that parcel redeveloped. So we have interested parties and we haven't even put it out to bid yet, so that's a
great.
good thing.
Yep.
So I wanted to at least celebrate that and acknowledge Joe and everybody. There's been a lot of people who've worked on this project, and we just keep pushing the ball forward and try to get people interested in it. And I think we've done that. Draft warrant we should have before you for the 10th. We're going to try and email it to the board this week, and then hopefully have you sign it on the 17th. So there'll be a 10 or a 7 to 10 day window that we can thoroughly review those items. There'll be the mundane, boring stuff that we always do, adjustments to the budget. We don't see any catastrophic adjustments to the budget for October. Health insurance will probably one. And then creating, and I mentioned this before, I just mentioned again, but the adder that we approved for the electric aggregation program, we do have to create a special revolving account for that, to use that money for a particular purpose of sustainability relative to energy. So we'll create that account at town meeting. So those are just a flavor of some of the items. We will go to Finance Committee in early October to cover all of those articles. We are sending out the FY '21 budget expectation book. It's like a 3 or 4 page memo that we send to all staff so we can start the process for FY '21. We had a long conversation with Matt Often today about the Capital Improvement Planning Study Bylaw Committee. They're meeting tomorrow. He asked one of us to go. I don't know if either one of us can, but we, in principle, support the concept of the committee. I just want to know who's responsible for what at the end of the day. I gotta live inside the charter, but I also want to involve as many people in that process as possible. So we worked through that a little bit today. We talked about this earlier in the spring. We're finally going to move forward with a active shooter training for the municipal center and the library. So it's put on by Lieutenant Neil Minardi, and he'll instruct us what to do in the event of an active shooter. These things come more and more prevalent every day. We hear of something. So trying to keep people as safe as possible. You alluded to the meeting we had last week. There is a legislative breakfast that the MMA puts on. There are dates for September 20, September 27th, October 4th. They're in different parts of the state. I'll just forward you the email if anybody has interest in going to the MMA legislative breakfasts. Can certainly attend. Lots of boards go. So if you want to attend, you certainly are welcome to go.
think
But
there's
I'll
one in
forward that
Marlboro.
email along to you, unless you already got it.
I got it today.
All right.
Yeah.
And then finally, oh, maybe not finally, there's probably 2 things. ZBA and Prentice Place, some new members, so what I think I want to do is bring Dan Hill and Bill McCusker into executive session for next week, just to get us all up on the same page. I think it's resolved. I think there's been a lot of good movement to satisfy the neighbors and to satisfy the ZBA. The developer is never happy, but we could at least go through what the Housing Appeals Committee has told us what we should do from a arbitration mediation standpoint. So we'll try and do that for next week.
Okay.
And then we're still working with National Grid and Afonso on Route 30. That project is underway. There are areas that need to be addressed in terms of paving along Route 30. We're very much aware of it, and we're pressing them every day to get those things fixed. So if you're hearing complaints, we're aware of it, and we're working with the contractor to make those things right.
Thank you.
Okay.
But that's all I have.
Selectmen or select board members. Mr. Carlson.
I just have one question. Tim, going back on the development over on Pine Street, is that Grafton's first 40R development that's gone through at this point?
No, there's other 40R locations like South Grafton, Jean Burnett's location, not to be developed yet.
But this was the first active one that we've seen since the mid-2000s, since we've passed the 40R zoning? Is that in your estimation? I just, because when I saw that,
It's the first one that we're gonna control,
Yeah,
so yes.
okay. No, I'm a little excited about that,
Yeah.
because that's something that was really huge going back.
And there's
long time
40S
ago.
payments too for the affordability piece. This is nuance, but the 40S payments offset the affordable component for additional kids in the school system. For the, like, if you did a TIF or something like that, it can offset those types of things.
Right.
I don't know what the payment will be just yet, because we don't have a developer on board.
Right.
But that would work through the TIF committee, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's exciting. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah.
pleased to see.
Yeah, so it is it's the town's first one that we're kind of shepherding through.
Great.
Great.
No, congratulations on everyone working on that too. That's gonna be a huge success, I think.
I'm really surprised I did not have to cut a check for $1 to the state of Massachusetts. I'm so looking forward. No, I was set to use the other side of the Green Communities check
never
to
know.
print the $1 check on and bring it to them.
Reuse.
Yeah, no one. The state did not see my humor.
I can't imagine why.
Sort of par for the course.
But we do.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, just one thing from me. We have a Grafton Sustainability Commission meeting coming up on September 5th at 7 p.m. I thank everybody for their applications and letters of interest. We'll be going through those on Thursday night. Anyone else? Oh, we have items of correspondence, I guess, to get to.
Sure. So, how would the select board like me to handle this? We received one correspondence from a concerned citizen regarding North Grafton. Would you want me to read that into the record first?
Sure, go ahead.
sorry, my super secure email system's making me log back in again. Those security people are never trusting. 1 minute. There we go. Looking for it.
Are these what you're reading? You can, we have a hard copy.
I have one from a Miss Paglioni from North Grafton. Message, just to keep you informed, over 30 horn blows this morning at Waterville and East Street. 5 pull-ups and backups across Waterville and East Street to hook and unhook cars. At the meeting I attended, I asked the question if the railroad has the right to block those 2 roads and use them as their depot. I was told no, but yet it goes on and on. The CEO at that meeting said he can't control how many cars CXX drops off to him as a customer. What does that mean? So if my parking lot or driveway only holds 3 cars and I can park all the overflow anywhere I want, come on, let's get serious with this guy. Does anybody care about this neighborhood? I can't believe I'm the only one complaining about this, but my concerns are for the entire neighborhood. While I'm writing this, 5 more home blows very loud. I wish someone from your office would experience this. Just to address that, we did talk about that at our meeting on Tuesday, and I know Ms. DeFazio had brought that up as a future agenda item. So I guess we just stay tuned, and one of us should notify her once that's on the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay. Besides that, I have another one here. This is from Mr. Aaron Zalewski. 16, junior at Bartlett High School in Webster, Mass. I am Master Sergeant with the Natchog River Young Marines, Killingly, Connecticut. I am also a student athlete, varsity soccer and tennis. I'm reaching out to the towns covered under the Southern Worcester County League of High School Athletes, my student athlete peers, to encourage our communities to promote a drug-free, healthy lifestyle. The Natchog River Young Marines was awarded this prestigious Erkine Kiki Kamanara Drug Enforcement Administration Award. The award represents thousands of hours of the young Marines spend on drug demand reduction and prevention. My unit is continuously on the forefront, leading the charge in the community. We participate in educating middle school, boys, Girl Scouts, and we set up booths at public events, just to name a few. Red Ribbon Week will take place on October 23rd through October 31st. The Natchog River Young Marines will be actively participating in this nationally recognized illicit drug awareness event. You can assist us by publicizing and promoting the week by issuing a town-wide proclamation that boldly declares your town's support and commitment in the fight against illegal drugs and those that promote their use. The mission of the Young Marine program is to develop good citizenship and promote a healthy, drug-free lifestyle in our youth. Drug awareness and education are vital and key elements to the Young Marines' fight against illicit drug use and trafficking in our communities. To win this war on drugs, we must reduce the demand for illicit drugs, and one of the best ways to accomplish this mission is through education and awareness. Red Ribbon Week is an excellent opportunity to promote illicit drug awareness, and I hope that you will join us in this campaign. Young Marines will be actively and aggressively participating in Red Ribbon Week campaign. Having the town's council support in this Young Marine project will greatly assist us in getting our anti-drug message out. Thank you in advance for your consideration. Please notify me at the number below, and I will be on hand to receive the proclamation from your town. For your convenience, I have attached an example of a proclamation respectfully submitted. Young Marine Master Sergeant Aaron Zalewski, Natchog River Young Marines. Let me read the proclamation. Sure. Excuse me. Proclamation recognizing Red Ribbon Week. Whereas Red Ribbon Week is a campaign to show support for ridding communities of illicit drug use and those that traffic and profit from illicit drugs. And whereas Red Ribbon Week will take place on October 23rd through October 31st. And whereas the Natchog River Young Marines located in Dayville, Connecticut, along with the Young Marines from many surrounding towns, will actively participate in this nationally recognized illicit drug awareness event. And whereas the Natchog River Young Marines proudly stand in support of and are committed to the fight against illegal drugs and those that promote their use. And whereas the Young Marine program promotes good citizenship and healthy lifestyle is through education and awareness, and the best way to educate is to lead by example. And therefore, let it be proclaimed by Grafton Select Board of the Town of Grafton that the Natchog River Young Marines should be recognized as an outstanding opportunity for our local youth and their continuing efforts to educate and promote a healthy, drug-free lifestyle. And be it further proclaimed that the Young Marine Program should receive the support from the Grafton Select Board and the residents of the town of Grafton for their positive impact on our youth and our community by wearing a red ribbon during Red Ribbon Week.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Zaluski.
Okay, and I may say, I think Mr. McInerney made reference to this, but the Coalition for Healthy Grafton is holding a community conservation on opioids and prescription drugs in youth on the September 24th at 6:30 p.m. in the high school auditorium. The guest speaker is Dr. Ruth Putti. And last but not least, just a reminder, special election that the select board voted at their meeting on August 20th, 2019, to hold a special election to fill the vacant seat of former Bruce Smitty on October 29, 2019. Nomination papers are available in the clerk's office and are due back to the clerk's office by September 10th, 2019.
Are those the announcements or correspondence?
think
Yeah,
we
it's
skipped
kind
right-
of going over back and forth. So I only have one more left, and we skipped over it from the beginning. So
Can I say something about Ruth Potee?
sure.
Real quick, I should have said it in Selectmen's report, but I knew this was on the correspondence. I was in attendance at the meeting for the Coalition of Healthy Grafton, and the reviews that Ruth Potee gets are phenomenal. She's been to Grafton in the past, and I really encourage everybody to attend if able. It's a great opportunity for our town, and it's a very serious conversation that I do encourage people to go if you can. That's it.
Thank you.
All right. There's a couple more.
Let's go through.
Okay. So Recreation Department, registrations for fall and winter recreation programs opens on September 5th at 9 a.m. The Grafton Recreation Fall and Winter brochure can be found on the town website or by stopping by the Recreation office. Last but not least, I know, Mr. McInerney, you gave another update to this regarding Triple E. Aerial mosquito spraying was performed on August 26th and 27th. Please be advised that the Grafton Board of Health voted to restrict all outdoor activities on town and school-owned property after dusk hours until the first hard frost. Residents should continue to take necessary precautions when headed outdoors.
Tim, I did notice there were some complaints that people were still using the tennis courts and the basketball courts around the high school after dusk hours. Who's monitoring that, if anybody?
There's no enforcement. We posted big yellow signs on all the doorways to those, and the lights are supposed to go off. But then somebody told me there is another light fixture you can push.
There's a button
Uh,
with
Yeah,
a time.
I don't know if that's disabled at this point or not, but there's no enforcement of it. It's people. It's a
Okay.
serious thing. People should just stay away.
Yeah.
I don't know if the police go up and talk to kids when they're out there or not after dusk.
Okay. All right. Correspondence, any committee reports? No? Okay. Do you want to do reorganization discussion?
Sure.
All right. I will entertain a motion.
Should we have a discussion first, maybe?
Yeah,
I just think it's a better way to do it. There's four of us, and it would be nice to just kind of talk out maybe a couple scenarios.
sure, go ahead.
Okay. So a thought I had is that, technically we have already in place a clerk and we have a vice chair, and you've been acting chair. So, we could make a motion for a chairperson and keep the vice chair and the clerk as is and just kind of make it seamless like that. So I would make a motion for Jen, being the most seasoned member of the board, to be chair, and then have you be vice chair and Peter be clerk.
Okay.
So that's one scenario. You want to discuss it?
Yeah, if you elect the vice chair, why not make the vice chair chair And then you have a vice chair or open position, and we just appoint the vice chair.
That would be another scenario. So we could have the current vice chair who's acting chair be chair and elect a vice chair. But just the way I see it is
The position that is
open as chair, yeah.
Sure. And
I will say, I have sat on this board for 5.5 years. I have been chair, I've been vice chair, I've been clerk 3 times. I have the experience to do the job, I've done it before. I have more than double of the amount of experience of the remainder of the board. So,
Point of order. Jen, you're just being very quiet, I'm sorry. Yeah, I can't hear you after the home cam. That's all I wanted to say, I'm sorry.
all right, I'm just saying that I have 5.5 years of experience, and I have been the chair, I've been the vice chair, and I've been clerk 3 times. So, I feel like I can do the job as chair.
Any other discussion on that?
No?
could you do the job of vice chair?
I have done the job as a vice chair, but the position that is open is chair.
Oh, yeah, I understand that.
Anyone else?
I don't have any other discussion.
You want to make a motion?
Sure. I make a motion that Jen Thomas filled the vacant position as chair of the select board.
Motion made. Or a second?
You're gonna make me second my own. Okay, second.
Okay, motion made. Second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I do have just one other discussion item here. Just with the current board today, has there been any problems with the vice chair fulfilling the role as chair over the past few meetings?
No.
I have a couple problems. I felt like our acting chair did not allow people to speak when they came to speak about an issue. And in the past, I will say that he has been on time while he's been acting chair. But in the past, he's been late about 75% of the time.
So I will say, I don't have a problem with the acting chair being chair. I think you run a tight meeting. I agree with Jen in the sense that if, I feel like sometimes, we could give a little more courtesy to people who show up at the meetings. I think all of us would run it differently. But, based on our goals meeting and giving an opportunity for the public to speak beforehand, that would be, that's a scenario that I'd be okay with. But my first instinct is that the chair position is open, and to make it the most seamless, again, kind of going through that process of you're acting as chair, but you're vice chair, and that Jen has the most experience. I would like her to give her the opportunity to be chair. So that would be my first choice. But to answer Peter's question, I personally do not have an issue with Ed being chair.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, let me just make sure I'm going to say this correctly. The motion has been made to nominate Jen Thomas as chair. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
So let me just, if I can at this point, this was sort of what my concern was a couple weeks ago. We run the risk of doing this and sort of going through a bunch of two permutations of how this could turn out, all sort of over an issue that, frankly, I don't consider to be that big of a deal. I'm not going to make a pitch for myself. My only position is, I was elected to be vice chair, and the reason you have a vice chair is if something happens to the chairperson, and you can make the argument, well, yeah, sure, if he misses a meeting or something, or not. There are no position descriptions either in the charter or the bylaws. In fact, there's no requirement that we even have a chair in the charter or the bylaws, as far as I can see. Certainly, there's no mention of a vice chair. The only mention in the charter or the bylaws is that we nominate a clerk. So, this to me isn't something we should spend a ton of time on tonight and frankly, maybe not even until October 26th, because we could spend a lot of time right here kind of looking silly and looking like we're more concerned with, you know, who does the agenda on a week-to-week basis than we are on substance. So I'm perfectly content doing this until such time as there's another person elected.
But there is an opening that should be filled.
Okay.
But it shouldn't be, it's not, you're the ones making it into the big deal. It's not.
It's not how I see it, but okay.
You know, I look at succession planning as if you're gonna be vice chair, then your anticipation is that you're going to be chair. You know, and that's the reason why you have a vice chair. Very rarely do you have a clerk run a meeting, but I think it's happened once. I think it might have been with you or
Well, you
somebody
guys
else.
ignored the succession planning in the last time, so, you know, it's not there is no true succession planning here. It's the will of the board.
Right, and right. What I'm
So-
saying is right now we're seemingly split. So again,
Not necessarily, we haven't talked about the other positions.
okay.
It's to throw it all out because you're not willing to have a discussion. so
Well, I'm
it's-
totally willing to have a discussion. I'm just saying, you know, the other option.
So
would be to
basically
wait
what
until
you're
October
saying
26th.
is you will not vote for Doreen and I for any position.
Nor
is
would you
that-
vote for me. I feel like I was elected to a job. I'm gonna do the job. That's my position.
But you just made an assumption that's not true.
Yeah, that's actually not what I said. I said I would support that as a second option.
Okay.
You know, and I have to say, I agree. I don't think this is a conversation that, you know, as leaders, we need to be petty on. I think we vote and, you know, but I want for the record for it to be known that, you know, and I've said this before in other meetings when she was absent, I mean, I respect her role and her seniority on this board, and my first vote would be, like I did, to have Jen be chair. I think that that would be the best case scenario for this board. However, I think we need a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk. And if the vote is no, let's move on and make another motion.
All right, so I'll entertain another motion.
Oh, I said it, I'm fine with this. I motion Mr. Prisby, to become chair.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, solves that problem. Now we have a vice chair vacancy.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Carlson.
I motion Jen Thomas be appointed vice chair.
Motion made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Jen? I didn't hear you. Yes?
I said aye.
Okay. All right, now we need a clerk.
No, you
We
have
have
one.
a clerk.
Oh, we have a clerk.
Yes.
Sorry.
We're done.
The only
Sorry,
one
we're done.
that's
We're done.
Look at that.
staying
Yep,
put
we have
here.
a full board again.
All right.
I do think we still have meeting minutes to approve.
We do.
Yes. Mr. Chairperson. Mr. Chair.
Mr. Carlson.
I vote that the select board approve meeting minutes for June 11, 2019 as presented.
Motion made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the last one,
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Carlson.
I motion that the select board approve meeting minutes for June 25th, 2019 as presented.
Motion made. Do I hear, so motion made and seconded. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And we have nothing that warrants executive session tonight.
Not tonight.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone.